Good evening, everyone. Today I want to talk about something we all experience at some point in life: communication breakdowns in relationships. Whether it's with a partner, a friend, or a colleague, there comes a time when words don't seem to work anymore. That's when silence steps in, not as an absence, but as a presence, louder than words. Understanding human nature is a cornerstone of navigating relationships, especially when it comes to moments of silence. Sometimes the voice of silence. People are inherently driven by connection, by the need to feel seen, heard, and understood. This is true in all relationships, but it takes on a particular weight in romantic dynamics. Silence is not just the absence of words. It is a profound and intentional shift in the way we communicate. It disrupts the norm and forces a reckoning, often revealing aspects of human behavior that are otherwise easy to overlook. When you stop talking to someone, especially a man, you tap into one of the most primal aspects of human nature: the fear of loss and the need for validation. As much as people like to think they are rational beings, emotions are the real drivers of behavior. A man who is used to constant dialogue, to the comfort of being engaged, will feel the void left by your silence. And in that void, human nature does what it does best: it reacts. The way it feels best. It reacts. This reaction, however, is not always straightforward. For some, silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their own actions or inactions back at them. It forces introspection, often prompting questions like, why did the conversation stop? What role did I play in this silence? Others may respond differently, retreating into their own silence, either out of confusion or an unwillingness to face the discomfort of the situation. Both responses stem from the basic human tendency to avoid pain, whether it's the pain of guilt, rejection, or self-realization. What's fascinating about human nature in these moments is how much it reveals about priorities and emotional investment. When someone truly values the connection they have with you, silence will compel them to act, to seek understanding, and to find ways to repair what feels broken. On the other hand, if their commitment is shallow or their ego outweighs their desire for connection, they may choose indifference. But even that indifference is a response that speaks volumes. Silence taps into something even deeper: the human need for clarity. When words stop, the ambiguity of the situation can become overwhelming. People crave resolution, and when you take away verbal explanations, they are left to fill in the blanks themselves. This process can be uncomfortable, but also incredibly revealing. It exposes not just how they feel about you, but also how they handle uncertainty and conflict. A true test of character. So, in understanding human nature, we recognize that silence is not just a void, it's a tool. It's a way to uncover truths that words often obscure. It forces the other person to confront their feelings, their actions, and their intentions. It highlights their willingness or lack thereof to work through discomfort for the sake of the relationship. And most importantly, it reminds you of your own power. Silence is not a weapon, it's a boundary. It's a declaration that you are not willing to pour endlessly into a conversation that isn't reciprocal. It's a way to say, without speaking, that your worth doesn't depend on someone else's acknowledgement. Understanding this aspect of human nature allows you to see silence for what it truly is: a revealer of intentions, a catalyst for change, and a reminder of the strength that comes from within. It is in the moments of silence that we often find the loudest truths. Absence is a force that often speaks louder than presence, a reality we sometimes overlook in our fast-paced, communication-driven world. When someone steps back, when they withdraw their presence, the dynamics of a relationship begin to shift in ways that can be profound. Absence isn't just about physical distance or the lack of words. It's a deliberate pause that disrupts patterns and invites reflection. It creates a space where emotions, thoughts, and priorities are forced to emerge in stark clarity. When you stop talking to someone, it is not merely the cessation of communication. It's the introduction of a void that cannot be ignored. People are naturally drawn to patterns, to the comfort of routine. When that pattern is interrupted, when your voice is no longer part of the equation, it's like removing a critical piece of a puzzle. Suddenly the picture feels incomplete, and the absence becomes the loudest presence in the room. This is where the power of absence comes into play. It compels attention in ways that words cannot. It forces the other person to notice what they may have taken for granted, to feel the weight of what it means to no longer have you actively engaging with them. This absence doesn't just create longing, it creates awareness. Awareness of your value, of the energy you brought into the relationship, and of the void that now exists in your silence. Awareness. For the person experiencing your absence, this is often a moment of reckoning. It challenges their understanding of the relationship and of themselves. Some may feel the loss immediately as a sudden and jarring change. Others might take longer, but as time passes, the absence grows more pronounced, more difficult to ignore. It's in these moments that true intentions are revealed. The person who values you will feel compelled to bridge the gap, to seek you out, and to address whatever led to the silence. They will feel the weight of your absence as a call to action. On the other hand, if your absence is met with indifference or avoidance, it becomes a clear indicator of where you stand in their life. And while this realization may be painful, it is also liberating. It saves you from investing further energy into a connection that doesn't reciprocate your value. In this way, absence becomes a tool for clarity, a way to discern who is willing to show up for you when it matters most. But the power of absence is not just about what it reveals in others, it's also about what it teaches you about yourself. When you step back, you give yourself the space to reflect, to regroup, and to reconnect with your own needs and boundaries. It's a reminder that your worth is not tied to constant communication or presence. Sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is to retreat, not out of spite or anger, but out of respect for yourself. Absence also creates a kind of silence that is rich with possibility. It allows you to observe how life unfolds without your intervention. You begin to see who steps up, who fades away, and who truly values the relationship enough to make the effort. This isn't about manipulation, it's about truth. Absence strips away the noise and leaves only what is real. In the end, absence is not just an act of withdrawal, it's an act of strength. It's a way of saying, I am confident enough in my worth to step back and let the truth reveal itself. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is in the space you leave behind. And in that space, you find not just answers, but also a renewed sense of your own value. Like emotional accountability is one of the most profound and necessary aspects of any meaningful relationship. It requires a person to take responsibility for their feelings, actions, and the impact those actions have on others. Yet this concept is often misunderstood or overlooked, especially in moments of tension or conflict. When you stop talking to someone, it becomes a test of their emotional accountability. How they choose to respond in your absence speaks volumes about their maturity, self-awareness, and commitment to the relationship. And taking responsibility for one's emotions is not an easy task. It demands a level of introspection that many people find uncomfortable. It's much easier to shift blame, to project feelings outward, or to avoid accountability altogether. But true growth and meaningful connections require the willingness to face those uncomfortable truths. When you stop talking, you effectively remove the distractions that often enable avoidance. The transition that follows from truth that we say is the hardest. Your silence forces the other person to confront not just the situation, but their role in it. In relationships, emotional accountability often begins with recognition. It's about recognizing the ways one's actions or inactions contribute to a breakdown in communication. For someone who values the relationship, this recognition is the first step toward repair. They may ask themselves, what did I do to contribute to this silence? Was I dismissive, neglectful, or unwilling to listen? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary for any meaningful resolution. When someone is emotionally accountable, they don't run from the discomfort of your silence. Instead, they face it head on, understanding that the absence of words is an invitation to reflect, to take ownership, and to make things right. They acknowledge the impact of their behavior without deflecting or minimizing it. This is where emotional growth happens, not in the easy moments, but in the challenging ones, where accountability becomes a choice. However, not everyone responds to silence with accountability. For some, the lack of communication may trigger defensiveness or avoidance. They may shift the blame onto you, labeling your silence as dramatic or unnecessary, rather than considering the reasons behind it. This is a telling sign of emotional immaturity, a refusal to look inward and take responsibility for their part in the dynamic. In these cases, silence becomes a clarifying force, revealing the limitations of their emotional capacity. Emotional accountability also involves empathy. It's not just about acknowledging one's own role, but also understanding how their actions or lack thereof affect the other person. When you stop talking to someone, an emotionally accountable individual will consider how their behavior might have caused you to retreat. They will seek to understand your perspective, even if it's uncomfortable or challenges their ego. This willingness to empathize is what separates meaningful connections from superficial ones. Your silence becomes a litmus test for their capacity to grow and to meet you where you are emotionally. It's not about punishing them, it's about creating an environment where accountability can flourish. And even if they choose not to step up, your silence still serves a purpose. It reinforces your boundaries, reminding you that you don't have to overextend yourself or continuously explain your feelings to someone unwilling to listen. For you, emotional accountability also means recognizing your own feelings and actions. It's about being honest with yourself about why you chose silence and what you hope it will achieve. Are you seeking clarity, distance, or a resolution? Understanding your own intentions helps you navigate the situation with integrity, ensuring that your silence is not a weapon, but a tool for self-respect and growth. Emotional accountability is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. It's what allows people to navigate conflicts, to grow together, and to build trust. When you stop talking, you give the other person the opportunity to demonstrate their accountability, or lack thereof. And in that process, you not only learn more about them, but also about yourself and what you're willing to accept in a relationship. This clarity is a gift, even if it comes wrapped in the discomfort of silence. The mirror effect is one of the most profound dynamics in human relationships. It's the idea that our interactions with others often reflect our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors back to us. When you stop talking to someone, this effect becomes magnified. Your silence creates a stillness in which they are forced to confront themselves, no longer distracted by the usual flow of conversation, explanations, or justification. It's as if you've held up a mirror, allowing them to see their own actions, intentions, and priorities with unfiltered clarity. People often avoid self-reflection because it can be uncomfortable, even painful. It's much easier to focus on the external, to blame circumstances, or to project feelings onto others. But when you stop talking, you disrupt this cycle. The mirror effect forces them to pause and look inward. They start to examine the dynamics of the relationship, asking themselves questions they might not have considered before. Why has she gone quiet? Did I do something wrong? Have I been neglectful or dismissive? These moments of introspection can be incredibly revealing, not just about their feelings for you, but about their overall emotional awareness and maturity. The power of the mirror effect lies in its ability to bypass surface-level distractions and bring deeper truths to light. Without the usual back and forth of conversation, there's no opportunity for deflection or avoidance. Instead, they are left with their own thoughts and feelings, which can be both enlightening and unsettling. For someone who genuinely values the relationship, this self-reflection often leads to growth. They may recognize patterns of behavior that they need to change or areas where they've fallen short. However, the mirror effect doesn't always lead to positive outcomes. For some, the reflection they see may trigger defensiveness or denial. Instead of confronting their own shortcomings, they might focus on blaming you for the silence, viewing it as an act of punishment rather than an opportunity for introspection. This reaction says more about their emotional state than it does about the situation itself. It highlights their inability or unwillingness to take responsibility for their actions. In some cases, the mirror effect can also bring hidden insecurities to the surface. Your silence may make them question their worth, their role in the relationship, or their ability to meet your needs. While this can be uncomfortable, it's often a necessary step for growth. It pushes them to consider whether they are showing up in the ways they should, and whether they are willing to do the work to strengthen the connection. On a deeper level, the mirror effect also serves as a reminder of how much we influence each other in relationships. Your actions or inactions have a ripple effect, prompting the other person to respond in ways that reveal their true selves. The absence of your voice, your energy, and your presence creates a space where they can no longer ignore their own role in the dynamic. Having a ripple effect, this unfiltered reflection can be a powerful catalyst for change, forcing them to confront not just their behavior, but the underlying motivations and emotions driving it. The mirror effect works both ways too. In your silence, you may also find yourself reflecting on the relationship and your feelings about it. It allows you to step back and see things from a different perspective, free from the noise of constant interaction. This dual reflection can be transformative, revealing truths about both individuals and the connection they share. Your worth is something intrinsic, something that exists entirely independent of the words you say or the conversations you have with others. It is not tied to how much you explain, how often you compromise, or how many times you show up for someone else. In fact, some of the most profound realizations about your value come in moments when you step back, when you stop talking and allow the absence of words to speak for itself. Is it real without words? Is it real without words? Is it real without words? Silence has a way of stripping away the layers of performance and expectation, revealing the essence of who you are. When you choose silence, you assert that your value doesn't hinge on constant validation or acknowledgement from others. It's a powerful statement of self-worth, one that says, I am enough as I am, even without having to prove it to you. This can be unsettling for people who are used to relying on external affirmation. In a society that often equates worth with visibility, how much you contribute, how much you do for others, choosing to remain silent is an act of quiet defiance. It challenges the idea that your worth needs to be constantly articulated or defended. Silence also disrupts the transactional nature of many relationships. When you stop talking, you remove the expectation that your value comes from what you offer, your support, your advice, your understanding. Instead, it becomes clear that your presence alone holds significance. For those who truly value you, your silence will not diminish your worth in their eyes. It will magnify it. They will recognize that your contributions are not obligations but gifts, freely given and deeply appreciated. For others, however, your silence may reveal a different reality. It may expose relationships where your worth has been undervalued or taken for granted. In these cases, silence becomes a boundary, a way of saying, I will not keep pouring myself into a space where my value is overlooked. It is not about withholding, but about preserving your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. This understanding of your worth without words also shifts your perspective on how you engage with others. It frees you from the need to over-explain, to justify your feelings, or to constantly advocate for your needs. You begin to realize that those who truly see you will not require endless explanations. They will understand your silence, respect it, and respond to it with care and consideration. In many ways, silence becomes a test. Not a manipulative one, but a natural one. It reveals who is willing to do the work of understanding you without needing constant clarification. It shows who values your presence enough to notice its absence and who is willing to reflect on their own actions instead of demanding that you explain yourself. You doubtless realize that you need space too. This is not about punishing others, but about creating a space where authentic connections can thrive, where your worth is acknowledged without the need for constant reinforcement. Your worth without words also allows you to connect more deeply with yourself. It gives you the space to reflect, to listen to your own thoughts and feelings without external noise. In that silence, you can reconnect with your own needs and priorities, reminding yourself that your value is not defined by what others think or say about you. Instead, it is a constant, unchanging truth that exists whether or not anyone else chooses to recognize it. Silence becomes a sanctuary, a place where your worth is affirmed by nothing other than your own being. So, in the end, silence is not just an absence. It is a profound and intentional presence. It is a declaration of self-worth, a boundary that protects your peace, and a mirror that reflects the truth of your relationships. Through silence, you create space for clarity, growth, and revelation, both for yourself and those around you. When you stop talking, you invite accountability, foster introspection, and allow the true dynamics of your connections to surface. Silence becomes a powerful tool to reclaim your power, honor your value, and discern the intentions of others. Whether it leads to healing, understanding, or the difficult but necessary decision to let go, your silence speaks volumes about the strength and wisdom you carry within. Remember, you are enough as you are, worthy, whole, and deserving of respect. Not because of what you say or do, but simply because of who you are. So never fear the quiet. Embrace it as a tool for truth, a pathway to self-respect, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful statements are made without words at all.